So can pop, punk, klezmer, country, hip-hop, and maybe even bagpipes. Because studies show that music can lower stress, anxiety, and even help your heart. So at Kaiser Permanente, we say turn it up and thrive.
How you doing? I'm doing well. Hi, how you doing? Hey, sir. How you doing? Sir, how you doing? Which one are you reading
Oh, she might do some crying. Yeah, some sleep at night. But he had no idea when he hit the road. Now without him in her life, she let herself go. Let herself go.
Real Americana, huh? How was your pancake breakfast?
We get the star came back knocked out. He said he didn't love her. She let herself go.
Well, thanks for everybody being here. Every 2 years we sort of meet at this place and have our campaign headquarters. I'm sorry I'm a little late. We were out at the motocross classics in Hangtown. It's actually in Rancho Cordova, but it started in Hangtown. They moved it a couple different places. I found out it was one of the top motocross events in the United States. As a matter of fact, it's the first one in the entire series. And it's amazing to see what they're doing out there. You probably would be driving by on 50 and wouldn't even know that it's out there at the Prairie City Off-Road Recreational Facility. But there is somewhere this weekend we'll have between 20 and 30,000 people out there, all families. But it does show that you can have multiple uses of our resources and that it can really work very, very well. It's a pleasure for me to be here because this is a tough year, as you know. It's one that we have to get organized and make sure that we are successful at, but it's one that we can be successful at so long as we do the work that we know can be done. I have just gotten back late last night from Washington, D.C. We had votes yesterday. We've been working on appropriation bills. We've been trying to put a marker down for the kind of spending restraint that's absolutely necessary. We're passing bills. The Senate is not doing much, but rather than stop what we're doing to show where we think the country needs to go, we're going to continue doing that. We sent about 30 bills over to the Senate on jobs. They've considered 2 of them. They've gone to the president. He signed them. So when the president says that he's about jobs, so we should be asking what's he doing to get the Democratic Senate to move those bills so we can actually get something done now rather than after the election. They're already talking about a lame duck session. I'm not sure if you all know what a lame duck session is. That's after the election. The already existing Congress goes back into session. So you have some lame ducks, people who have retired or people who have been defeated in an election, and yet they are still able to vote because their Congress lasts until January. We're already talking about going back into a lame duck session the week after the election. And one of the problems is people say, well, we're going to put off the tough issues till after the election. And unfortunately, well, it would be a good idea if we did that with the new Congress, because the new Congress would be a reflection of what people just voted on. But when you come back after an election, but you don't have a new Congress, You might have people voting in ways that don't reflect what the people want them to do. So I'm not a great fan of lame duck sessions. If we have to get some work done, obviously we ought to do it, but maybe we ought to get our work done before rather than after the election. We have people make judgments on that. This is an interesting race. Just this week, there was an independent expenditure that was announced, Golden State something or other, where evidently a Democratic Party has decided that 8 of us in the Congress from California, the Republicans, ought to be defeated. They're talking about losing $8 million and spending $1 million against each one of us independently. The press asked me about that reporter, and I said, look, as long as they spend that money to tell the truth, I don't worry about it. I'm not sure that's what they're going to do. So we're going to have to work very, very hard. And I will work very hard. I hope that you'll help us work very hard so that we can, in fact, make sure that the voters have an opportunity to vote based on what the reality is rather than what these distractions are. To look at the history, the record over the last, let's say, 100 years in the United States. Well, at least let's take the last 50 years. Since World War II, let's say, which is a little more. And you would see a president that has the economy that this president has. And you would see a president running for re-election who's had the job losses this president's had. And you would see a president who's had the longest period of time for the average person who's unemployed, longest period of time being on unemployment. Since we've kept records of World War II, you would say that history tells you that the president will not be elected. However, the polls suggest it's going to be a close race. And one of the reasons it may be a close race is that there is an effort on the other side not to talk about the issues that are important. I don't normally run around with this, but this got me into the motocross, and I'm going to go back later on. So I haven't just come out from the hospital. And so what the president and his colleagues are doing in the House and Senate are trying to distract us from the economy, from jobs, from the important issues of how we take this burden of debt that's being placed on our children and grandchildren, how do you get rid of it? And instead they talk about everything else. So we have the job of making sure the American people understand what the most important issues are. I have the American people understand the state of California. This is so I'm going to do my best to make sure that that's the case. I'm going to do my best to ensure that we're talking about the issues that are the real issues, and that the American people have an opportunity to be able to tell Congress, both the House and the Senate, and the White House, whoever's in the White House, that we've got to fix things. We can't have this burden on our kids. We can't have, well look, California is proving the test case. We are halfway in California. The U.S. government we are, and look at this, the California I was born in, my brothers and sisters are born in, the California my children are born in, the California I was married in. That California had people coming from Texas, coming from all across the country, coming from all across the world, here, because we had the best educational system. We were creating jobs like nobody else was creating. In addition to the fact that this is the greatest weather, the greatest state, the greatest resources in the United States. And now we have made it so that people actually leave California and go to Texas. I don't know about you, I've been to Texas. Nothing against Texas, but it's not California. And when you can get people to pick up and move their entire business, the jobs, the largest publicly held corporation in my district, in this area, Waste Connections, left Texas. Now some have said, well, it's no big deal, they only had 250 employees here. They had, I think, several thousand around the country. The fact of the matter is, the headquarters were here. They were one of the best contributors to charity here. They were philanthropic leaders in our community. They helped us throughout this entire region. They are gone now. And what's the response so far in the state capitol? Well, if we just tax a little bit more, we can work ourselves out of this problem. And unfortunately, that message is being heard in California, in Washington, D.C. So, we hope that we will have the opportunity to present those issues to the American people in this district, to the people of this district, and have them make a judgment. I'm perfectly willing to have the people of this district render judgment on the kind of representation I present. Because I have promised that I would be for low taxes, I would be for reasonable spending, I would be for strong national defense, I would be for those things that are necessary to protect us against the terrorists with the protection of our civil liberties in the process. And that's what I've been doing. That's what I continue to do. I think that's important for all of us. The message of America is a message that resonates around the world. We ought not to lose it. We ought to celebrate it. We ought to participate in it. We ought to extend it to our children. Now, there's somebody I just want to introduce to you. And I told her as I was coming over here where this place was. I'm not sure I gave her the best direction. But my wife Bobby is here. All the time being with me and understands how it is to make sure that I keep myself grounded. No matter what I might think. That works out pretty doggone well. So, once again, I want to thank you. Oh, the other thing is I should tell you these days, whatever we say is recorded. We have a situation where now, if you walk down the street as a member of Congress, it's recorded. If you walk out from the House office building, you go across the street to the Capitol Hill building, it's recorded. You have an event like this, it's recorded. And I'm perfectly happy with that. The problem is when they start editing these things. I'll just give you one example. 3 years ago, I had a town hall meeting, and a young person who got up and said, "I want to know what you're going to do for me." I thought this is an opportunity to explain to a student what the relationship of the federal government to the individual is. And I said, well, to tell you quite frankly, I'll tell you exactly what I told another high school student. That is, I didn't go to Washington to do anything for it. Then I went on to say, I went to Washington in order to create a modicum of security against enemies, foreign and domestic, so that you would not live behind bars in your own house, or you would not have to fear the terrorists. I went to Washington to make sure that we had a safety net. So if you failed through no fault of your own and needed help, we would be there to help you. And I went to Washington to make sure that we created an environment so that you could be the best that God gave you the talents to be. I think that's what we have always thought about this country. But they filmed that, and they did an ad in which they said, Lundgren is in it for himself. Listen to what he has to say. And they had that statement where I said, I didn't go to Washington. They left everything else. Now, I don't think that's honest. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that helps. Now, look, I know everything's fair in war and peace, as they say, or love and war, or politics, or whatever. But if we're going to have an enlightened public, if we're going to actually fulfill the promise of this country, we ought to at least respect one another so that when we engage in debate, we engage in real debate. There are issues. There are others who believe, no, let's just find an idea of what the government ought to be. The government ought to give you your job. The government ought to help you whether you need it or not. The government ought to pay for everything. The government ought to, and you start thinking about that, any government big enough to give you everything is a government big enough to take everything away. Now that's I'll be happy to debate that. But that's an honest debate, not one where there's a distortion of ideas or concept or words. So my hope is that in this race we'll be able to actually talk about ideas on a serious basis so that we elevate the debate to the level that the American people have a right to expect it to be. And we will continue to do that. We will fight for that. And we will work for it. Lastly, I would just say this. I'm very, very proud of my staff. I'm proud of my political staff. I'm proud of my official staff. I think I can say without fear of contradiction, I have the best staff in Congress, meaning that nobody works harder than the staff that I have, that I'm privileged to have, both my personal staff and my committee staff. They have a reputation that they built that they will listen to anybody. that we will give due consideration to whatever you have to say. That I may not agree with you, but I will respect your right to present your opinion. And we always believe that perhaps we can learn something from someone who comes in to see us. Now, that is a hallmark of our office. That will continue to be a hallmark of our office. And I want to tell you something. It makes me proud of the fact that I've got people who work for me who actually make sure that that's true. And so I just want to tell you, I am privileged to have the kind of staff that I have. But I also want to tell you that staff is worthy of your consideration, meaning that they do the job that you would expect them to do, and they do it selflessly, and they do it because they really do enjoy helping me represent this area back in Washington, D.C. It's a privilege to be a member of Congress. There's only been a few people, relatively speaking, for the size of this country that have ever had that chance. And I think about that every day. If I ever got in the car driving towards the Capitol and saw the dome of the United States Capitol, and didn't feel privileged and didn't have a chill go up my spine, then I would do it. I still, every day, think it's a privilege to be able to serve in the United States Congress. When I'm there on the floor, they don't call me Dan Lungren, they don't say Mr. Lungren, they say the gentleman from California is recognized. So every time I'm on the floor speaking, I am reminded that I'm there representing you. Not just from my own point of view, but representing the state of California, the constituency. It's a great feeling, I will tell you. It is a wonderful opportunity to do that. And I hope that with your help, we'll have a chance to continue to do that. So thank you very, very much, and God bless you. This is from Victory Headquarters. We had 2 years ago. We'll do Victory Headquarters again this year.
Phone calls, walking, everything will be directed out here, not just for Congressman Lungren, but for all of our Republican candidates here in Sacramento County. And we're really looking forward, and thank you so much for coming out. We know there's a lot to do on such a beautiful Saturday, but we appreciate your support coming here, and look forward to continue to support over the next 6 months or so. And we just appreciate it. Please, eat up. There's still some more food, there's more drinks, and mingle, I guess.
That's right. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, sir.
Camouflage cap, my t-shirt, cowboy boots.
How do I look? I look good?
Good, you look good.
Awesome.
Sitting guitar, picking moonshine, sipping records, you spitting chicken and bluegill, fishing and outlaw so you just mind your own damn business, stay the hell out.
It's not going to be up and fully operational probably either June, so there's no rush. But we can just, figure things out, get some awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Very make sure there are no kinks or anything. And then really, right after the primary, we plan to really ramp it up and be making a lot of calls throughout the summer.
So are you here with the media, or are you part of the campaign?
I'm with the Democratic Party.
Chasing little red sports cars.